Welcome to the College of Knowledge. This time, the Evolution of Zimbabwean Media. With extensive experience in journalism, he has been with the Zim Papers group since 1987 and is the current award-winning group CEO of Zim Papers Limited. Here is Pikirayi Deketeke.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You heard unlike her and unlike Trevor, I am a news junkie. When I wanted to go to journalism school as a young man after doing my secondary education, my dad said, "Are you crazy? Why do you want to do journalism? If you can't get a job at the Herald or at ZBC, where will you go? Why don't you do something like teaching, for instance? You are guaranteed of a job." Well, my late father, I wish he was still here, then I could tell him, well, I have the top job at the Herald today, and it's a different story, and we are chatting a different course altogether. I am a news junkie. If you walk into my office today, you'll find that I'm turned on to CNN, ENCA, Bloomberg. Now, for us, it's ZTN. So news is my life. From when I was a young boy, it wasn't a mistake. I love news. It's what I breathe. So tonight, hopefully in 15 minutes, I should be able to tell you the evolution story of Zimbabwean newspapers, which story starts from 1891, 127 years ago. It's not a moonshot. It was started by a guy called William Fairbridge in African Unity Square. It was not a technology company, but back then, he started a newspaper which was handwritten. And it was meant for the white colonial settlers who were coming in and wanted to have information about what was going on, where were the cattle sales, what was happening around their communities, and so on. But that vision, 1891, later on translated into a listed company in 1952, 1957, with 5 newspapers under a stable, owning the biggest commercial printing companies in Zimbabwe. It was Typocrafters. It was the only company that was manufacturing checkbooks for Zimbabwe, for Botswana, for Mozambique, for Zambia, back then. And then it was also owning Boulders, which was the only company that was publishing telephone directories in the country and doing yellow pages. It was also the only company that was running Nutprint, which was National Commercial Printing Company of Zimbabwe. It was Modern Printers then. And when we were young, any guy who was working for Modern Printers was the guy. It was the company. It was, recruiting apprentices. Those of my age will understand what I'm talking about, because they got all the girls. So William Fairbridge's vision blossomed. He had a vision, and that vision grew. In fact, when you look at the story of Zim Papers, it almost mirrors the story of Zimbabwe. 1891, as we went on, we were a giant economy. But things happened along the way. So like Zim Papers, a couple of years ago, things started going wrong. Zim Papers had to shut down Typocrafters because the check printing business died. No one was interested in checks because money had become plastic. The guys didn't know what to do. So they shut down the factory. It was one of the biggest factories in Bulawayo, and also had another factory in Harare. So the business died and people went home. Next was Boulders, because we were producing the telephone directory. No one wanted directories anymore. So there was no business. So it died and closed, doors were closed. And people went home again because there was no vision. What will we do after Boulders? Then there was Nutprint, and equipment was aging. There was nothing much to do. I think workers were owed about a year's salary, 6 months' salary, because things were grinding to a halt. Capacity utilization for factories was less than 10%. So we were in trouble. The only thing that was remaining from that Fairbridge vision was newspapers. And newspapers also were beginning to struggle. I mean, Trevor will tell you the story of what has been happening in the newspaper industry. I mean, it's a bloodbath. Bulawayo, which was one of our biggest branches, Chronicle and Sunday News were in trouble. Manika Post, which was in Mutare, was actually facing closure. We needed to close them because we were not making money. only Harare papers were making some business sense. So the business was facing an uncertain future a couple of years ago. It was actually on the verge of collapsing. Our choices were very limited. The cash crisis, compounded by digital migration, made the situation worse as it contributed to changing habits of people buying newspapers. Because when we were growing up, you had either your change is what you used to buy your newspaper. It was traditional, but the money was not there anymore. So that habit had changed. So if the habit is lost, it is impossible to regain it. That's how it works, especially for reading newspapers. If I were to ask anyone here, how many of us here was the last person to buy a newspaper? One. So when the habit goes, it goes for good. So newspapers really got into trouble because there was the emergence of new media. People were consuming media on their gadgets, on their mobile phones, on their tablets. They were still reading content. But the medium, we were fashioning ourselves as a newspaper company. We were not looking at ourselves as a media company or as a content company. So that's when trouble started. But that was not happening to only Zim Papers. It was happening to the entire media space. Newspapers throughout the world were in trouble. Readers are the same, habits are the same, and technology is universal. So newspapers, especially in Europe, were the most in trouble because some had to close down. In the United States, again, it was the same story. A lot of newspapers had to close down and are still closing down. So the advent of new media, new technology was trouble for all newspapers, newspaper companies like ours. So we had to transform. We had either to exit Bulawayo and Mutare, sell or be taken over, continue cost cutting until the cash cow can't bleed anymore. Or we had a choice to reinvent the business by focusing on what we call profit audiences. So this is what confronted us. And we took action across all our newspaper titles. Editors are like priests in a church. This is how we're trained. We hear from God and we tell the people what they need to read and what they need to know. But the model changed. Readers wanted to say what they want to read in newspapers. They wanted to be engaged. So we had to start reader panels and go to people and say, what is it that you want to read in our newspaper? What do you want to understand? Because in the old days, you went to the Herald to get to know about your hospital visiting times, what were the movies that were showing at that time, everything to all men. But the model changed. So we had to go and look at content customization. The Zim Papers model content had to reflect different tastes in different distinct markets. That's when we launched H Metro and B Metro in Bulawayo, so that we begin to capture audiences that were no longer reading us. What is it that they would want to read about? And most of them were saying, we are no longer interested in heavy political stories, in your heavy economic stories. What do you want to read about? Things that have to do with society. So that became our model so that we could get circulations coming in. We also had to look at editorial relevance and introduce what we call issue-led journalism. What were the issues that keep our audiences awake at night? What would keep you awake at night? It was issues to do with the economy, issues to do with crime, issues to do with their neighborhoods. So we introduced things like Suburban and Business Quickly, which were meant to address issues that worry our audiences on a day-to-day basis. It is about their schools, about their clinics, and so on. Stories that cannot be carried in a national paper, but will be carried in a localized suburban newspaper. So that marked the regeneration of our newspaper business. So we managed to fix that. We did also a lot of actions to make sure that our business models realigned to the new reality that we were facing. And the newspaper section was fixed. But Einstein defines insanity as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. The newspaper business was in trouble. We had to do something that was radical. Things were never going to be the same again. When you read Dr. Spencer Johnson's little book, Who Moved My Cheese, it tells you, when the cheese had moved, Ham refused to move, but the other mouse changed and looked for the cheese. So we had to look for the cheese. And the cheese for us was audiences, which is what all editors want to look at. So although print still pays, we still make money from print. We realized that the future was in television. radio, and digital media. This is what we needed to pursue. We looked at the region, we looked at Africa to see what was going on, Kenya, South Africa, and Nigeria, and confirmed that story. That money was beginning to come from TV, was beginning to come from radio, and today when you look at it, the biggest revenue earner in terms of advertising is Google, Facebook, and so on. New media, followed by TV. New media, digital media earns about 38%, followed by TV at 34%. Newspapers are now a distant 10%. So for us, this represented the future. We had to either innovate or die, and we did not choose dying. So this is what we looked at, developed an ecosystem. What is it that we know best? What we know best is content. We have been producing stories since the time of William Fairbridge in 1891. So we know how to tell stories. And you tell those stories either on TV, you tell it on print, or you tell it on radio. So we had to model a new business around storytelling. And today, your mobile phone today is no longer just a phone, but it's your newspaper, it's your radio, it's your television set. So how do we enter that market? That was our challenge. And that is the challenge that we have been pursuing now, to make sure that we are playing the digital space, but at the same time, we are playing radio. So a couple of years ago, which is what, about 6 years ago, we started our first radio project, which was Star FM. Star FM worked, and it took us about 5 years, the station. 5 years for Star FM to turn around and for us to start making money in terms of radio. Because the other was ZBC, which was not expected to make a profit. It had no mandate to make a profit, but inform citizens. So Star FM took 5 years, and the 6th year, it was beginning to make money, and everyone was excited. So the board said, no, go and look for more radio stations. We set up in Mutare, Diamond FM, our first converged platform, and in 1 year, we turned around Diamond FM. It was beginning to make money. The board got excited a bit more, said, go and look for other radio assets. So we got 2 more assets, and now we have 4, a total of 4 assets in terms of radio. So we have newspapers, we have radio. What was the next challenge? The next challenge was, the next frontier was television. That was our new journey. So 3 years ago, we started investing in television, put people into TV. We didn't have a license. We didn't know whether we were going to get a license, but we knew we had to be in that space. So we started training our people how to do TV, how to produce movies, how to do news content, and so on. And 2 months ago, we got our first license to do satellite broadcasting. That was it. And those of us who were following elections, I was just talking to some of the guys here, we're following elections on ZTN because it's an interactive platform. People watch on what is being announced officially, and they also want to say something. This is young people today. I go and watch TV on a linear TV. My daughter watches on a mobile phone. She watches ZTN. I watch ZBC probably from DSTV. But she talks to her friends while she's watching TV, and her friends are also talking about the elections that are being announced. So that's the new reality that we face. So we are interested in that space. So going forward, we are looking at DTT, which is digital terrestrial television, and IPTV, which is your internet protocol television. So we're quite excited about that. We also understand very well, I have 1 minute, we also understand very well that the television market is congested. There are big guns there, even telcos, whose business was telephony, are moving away from telephony to media, because that's where the money is. So you find Econet is now launching Kwese, iFlix, and so on. They're coming into our territory. There's DSTV. We thought we were the media gurus, but we now have to share that cake. There's Zuku. Tel1 is also launching video on demand, because that's where the money is. You need to move data, you need to have audiences, you need to sell advertising. But we are prepared for that, because content is what we know. So that dream that I thought I'll play some videos, but we don't have time for it. That dream that Fairbridge had in 1891 and almost died a couple of years ago, and we had to recreate it. We believe we are still on that journey to be able to recreate that journey and to create a Zim Papers that is not old, that is not a moon shooter, but can run the race and stay the course. And young people will come in, and we have new DJs that are here. I mean, DJ Joy is on Capital, Penny on capital. So things are happening. So we are able, even though we are not moonshooters, to continue with that dream that will transform Zimbabwe's story. Because we believe that our own story mirrors what has happened to our economy. We were once on a high, we hit turbulent times, and we're beginning to regenerate. So for 127 years, we have been able to pass on the baton, and we have recreated a new Zim Papers that is now across different interests. We are newspapers, we are magazines, we are on the internet, we have radio, we have commercial printing, we have television, we are in the SADC region, and we are playing the digital market, which is mobile. So we think we have recreated what Fairbridge saw in the beginning and taken it to a higher level. That we are no longer just a print-centric organization, but a multimedia company that can speak across all platforms with different audiences. I thank you.